we already know what he can do as a runner. But whenever we're talking about running backs, especially in today's day and age, everybody wants that guy that can be an asset in the passing game. And I definitely think he can be that. The contact balance is exceptional. In my opinion, his vision is really good. And we saw the effect that he was able to have on that offense. I actually called one of their games for ESPN Radio when they played Illinois this year. They unfortunately lost the game, but that was one of his better games of the year. And I was like, man, I'm blown away by how good this dude is.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible. Welcome into the 2025 NFL Scouting Combine. We're live here on Radio Row on the Paid Podcast. I'm Nick Springer, and right now I'm joined by Emory Hunt from CBS Sports and the Football Game Plan. Talk a little about KU. They've got 4 prospects here, Emory, and for KU fans, this is a big deal because Kansas has not had this many prospects at the NFL Combine in almost 15 years. So for them to have guys in this position to be drafted, it's very exciting. We'll break that down. First guy, let's just get right into it. Start off with Devin Neal. It feels like right now the NFL pendulum is starting to swing back towards having a quality running back, having that bell cow back, but also guys that can do different things. What have you seen from Devin Neal? What have you heard about him? How do you think he might perform in this draft?
Firstly, it has never gone anywhere, guys. The running back position always mattered. I love that. But for Devin Neal, for me, what I love about his game is that he's complete in terms of, like, he does a lot of things well.
Yeah.
He can catch the ball well, which we know is a prerequisite now. I don't think he's, that far away from pass pro. I like how he gets in the way. That's number 2. And obviously the running skills, the balance, the vision, the footwork, the ability to string moves together. I like all of the parts of his game, and I do feel like we'll see someone out here kind of in the mold of what we saw from Kareem Hunt, a guy that can do all things. Maybe not the same type of Gumby athleticism as Kareem Hunt, but he's a little bit more fluid of an athlete than Kareem Hunt. I love how he's, 5'10", 215, good all-around back, and I'm glad he's here because I thought he was going to get underrated throughout this whole process.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like we've heard a lot of different NFL coaches and GMs talk about the running back class this year. Do you think that could impact where he gets drafted? Maybe if running backs go off early, could that move him up, or could he slide? Where do you think he might go in terms of rounds?
That's a great question. I feel like this running back class compares favorably to what we saw during the Kareem Hunt year. So, yeah, Kareem Hunt, Leonard Fournette, McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Tariq Cohen. If you think about all these good backs that we had in that class, Aaron Jones, this is another one. And so, yeah, it depends on how high the first one goes. But I think we could see the second round be the sweet spot for all of these backs in this year's class.
A couple of teams that you think he might be a good fit for, I guess. Obviously, he's a local kid from Lawrence, right? I think Chiefs fans could be excited about a guy like him. But where do you think a couple teams that might be interested in a guy like this could be?
It's weird because we didn't even talk about this beforehand, right? Because I brought up Kareem Hunt just out of random.
Yeah.
And Kansas City makes a lot of sense because he can do all things. You don't have to take him off the field. He could be the good complement to another back on the roster, whoever that back may be. But I look at teams that kind of utilize those type backs, and not to go to a place where another former Kansas back went. Chicago, when Khalil Herbert was there, but I think Chicago, him paired up with a DeAndre Swift would be a good back, or someplace like the Raiders, someplace like New Orleans. It depends on what they want to do with their backfield situation. I do like how he fits pretty much anywhere for a team, even if, let's say, everybody wants to put the Cowboys with Genty in round 1. But I've said this, like, unless you have the elite level speed to really be a Jahmyr Gibbs or something like that, you could take a position player and then come back and get a Devin Neal with the Cowboys, and he fits in perfectly like glove.
Yeah, I was just thinking this could be a class where if you're not getting that elite guy, you could still end up getting a guy really good like a Devin Neal type later on. Let's flip to the defensive side. Kansas had 2 first-team All-Big 12 corners coming into the season with Cobee Bryant and Mello Dotson, and both of them played pretty well over the course of the season. Mello Dotson had a pick 6 against Colorado at one point, and Iowa State. What do you? Those are 2 different guys that are very different, though. Mello Dotson's more lengthy, tall. Cobee Bryant's more that sort of aggressive, sort of takes risk type player. What do you see out of those 2 guys?
It's fascinating because before the season, I said Kansas has the best cornerback duo in the Big 12. I also believe I said the country.
Yeah.
Because when you look at those 2 dudes, they are outstanding. They are a perfect complement. I was shocked at the Shrine Bowl how Cobee Bryant measured. If you told me Cobee Bryant was 6'2", 215, I'm like, yeah, that about checks out, right? Because that's how he plays, right? He's aggressive, he's active, he's feisty. He attacks the ball, great ball skill, ball awareness. And then Mello Dotson has the elite ball skills in terms of turning the ball over, great awareness, great understanding of route concepts. And so they play off perfectly to each other. This week will be big for both guys because obviously everyone wants to see how fast they are, how they test, how they move. But if we're just talking about straight football, give me those two dudes and give me both of them if you need two corners, because we saw them in the biggest of games. We saw them against Colorado.
Yeah.
All those receivers they have, and we've seen them constantly time and time again make big play after big play when the situation, the timing calls for it.
I think it's interesting with those two guys. You mentioned it about their two different skill sets. Do you get the sense one may go before the other based on maybe what they're projecting out in terms of pro? Like, could Mello Dotson with his length be ahead of Cobee, even if maybe you like Cobee more from a skill set standpoint? Or how do you think those guys may fall in the draft?
You know what? It's very interesting. And I hate that could come down to that, right?
Yeah.
Because we just saw Mike Sanderstill go high in the draft to Washington as a shorter corner, play outside and ball out. So it shouldn't matter for Mello Dotson because his size should be the surprise that, oh, wow, he's that small, but he plays bigger than his size. So it should erase any questions about that. But because Dotson has the length and the athleticism and the ball skills, I can see a team that values that taking him more or having him graded higher than
Cobee.
But football players, give me those two dudes, period.
Yeah, and Cobee is great because he's a trash talking type guy. He's going to get in your face. He's that type of corner. Which is
there was in at the Shrine practices, like there's always a guy that you could hear, right? There's always that one practice guy that is louder than everybody else, right? It's funny because BJ probably remember this where we were at Shrine practice and Keith Pugh, linebacker Howard, was the loudest dude all practice long, right? So Dotson, if I was a receiver, I would have had to fight him because, like, I need you to shut up, man. Like because now you're affecting my mindset, my paycheck, but that's what you want out there on the football team.
Yeah. Regardless, it's a very exciting time for Kansas football fans with 4 players, including Logan Brown, in the offensive tackle in the NFL draft. And like I said, they haven't had this many guys up to be drafted in quite a while. So really exciting time. Emory, thanks so much for your insight. It was great having you on here, and good luck the rest of this week.
I would say go KU, but I'm a big Raising Cajun fan. So I would just say good luck to Kansas next season.
All right, thanks so much. We're on Radio Row here at the 2025 NFL Scouting Combine. I'm Nick Springer here on the Paid Podcast, talking all things KU. Kansas has 4 players that are going to be here doing some drills and hoping to hear their names called at the NFL Draft coming up later on in April. And I'm joined now by self-proclaimed NFL Internet Football guy, Brett Kollmann, here on the show. Brett, thanks so much for taking some time with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm kind of just a little bit everywhere this week. Combine week is always wild because you're just kind of bouncing from show to show to show.
I mean,
and you're doing your own shows, and it's a wild week, but it's fun.
Yeah. I'm sure you've been very, very busy, but thankful for your time as well. And I want to talk to you about a couple of players that I know you really are excited for from KU. It's those 2 cornerbacks, Cobee Bryant and Mello Dotson, 2 guys that were first team, all Big 12 cornerbacks. A lot of people at the college level thought, hey, Kansas maybe has 2 of the best cornerbacks in the conference and maybe in the country. And both those guys lived up to those expectations over the course of the season. Now they're here at the NFL Draft. Let's start with Cobee Bryant. What do you like about him? Tell me a little bit more about what you see when you watch him and where you think he could fit in at the NFL level.
He is a little bit lighter as a corner, but just because he's light doesn't mean he's not tough. A really physical player, just a true dog mentality. Kind of reminds me, not size-wise, but from like a mentality perspective of Marcus Peters, which I know, everybody who listens to this podcast in the KC area is very familiar with Marcus Peters.
Yeah, Chiefs fans know about Marcus Peters and KU fans.
So aggressive, and just a genuinely funny human being. Like even in the middle of the game, like I have distinct memories during Shrine Bowl practices when he was jawing with receivers, and I don't want to say the name of a receiver who it was, but they will be drafted fairly high. Not exactly the fastest guy out there. So, ball goes up on a go route down the sideline, and he's not even on the field, and he's yelling, "Don't worry, you got time." He was talking so much crap all week and backing it up too, by the way. He was the best corner on the field. Great feet, great hips, super aggressive, great technician. We talked to him and Mello at the same time. And we got told to do that just because, when we were setting up our interviews, like do both the Kansas corners at the same time because they feed off each other and the energy. It was tremendous, and a lot of that came from Cobee. So I love him. I think he's a day 2 pick all day long. I don't care how small he is. Like I want him on my team.
Yeah, and you touched on it there with the size, right? I guess that would be the only thing you look at him and say, well, if you 170, 175, does that worry you at all? But we've seen some smaller corners have success now in the NFL. So do you think maybe that might make some teams that maybe 5 years ago would have said, I don't know, now think, wait a minute, we've seen other guys do it. He can do it too.
And it's tough to get in the business of chasing outliers until you hit on the outliers, right? So I think he's one of those corners who I truly believe he can survive at that size, and you never know. Like, not that Kansas's performance program is like bottom tier, like they absolutely know what they're doing there. But when you get into an NFL training regimen, if he can just put on like 5 to 7 pounds, just get me a 1.8 at the start of that number, I'd feel a little bit better about the amount of body armor he's got. I don't think he's really going to lose any explosiveness or speed. He's going to test really well. Just get like a little bit more muscle on there, and I think people will be just fine with it.
Yeah. You look at the other guy, Mello Dotson, a much more reserved corner, right? Much more, kind of reserved in himself, but still equally as talented. And he possesses that length of a true maybe NFL corner that you see teams look for. What do you just see out of him, and what do you think he could do maybe to get up and get drafted high this year as well?
He's a very unique player because even though he looks like a long press corner, he prefers to play off. Like he loves playing in space. He loves being like in that 7-by-1 alignment, looking at the quarterback and the receiver at the same time in the peripheral and kind of reading the drop and then reading the route and breaking on it from over the top. And, looking at his feet and his hips and his size profile, I kind of wonder if he's going to fit really well as like a nickel safety hybrid. Not that he can't play corner, but I almost feel like skill set wise, that might be his journey in the NFL, almost like a Marcus Williams profile at safety, even though he's coming out as a corner. And plus, when you're looking at the NFL, honestly, these days, converted corners into safeties are a pretty popular pipeline because they want guys who can cover like a corner at safety. So I almost feel like that's his path, and it might be his best path.
And Mello is a guy that was really opportunistic at Kansas, had a ton of pick sixes, made those type of big-time plays. When you see those types of plays on film, if you're an NFL team, how do you think that makes them feel about, okay, this guy can do that at the next level too?
It can be a trap sometimes, but contextually. I think back to Emmanuel Forbes, somebody we brought up, who was a smaller corner. But the reason why I was concerned about Forbes wasn't because he was small. It was because everybody kept talking about the pick sixes and the pick sixes. But if you go back and you watch the interceptions, it's like, okay, well, that was a tipped pass. That was one that he got beat on. It was just underthrown. Like there was like one pick six he had that was like a true play that he made. Different from Mello, like is plays that he is making. It's not just gifted tip ball opportunities or bad throws from a quarterback. Like he actually is a playmaker. He can break on the ball. I think he's really, really smart, really instinctive. He's got ball skills. Like he's one of these kind of guys where he's making his own luck, which I can't say that for every single DB in this class, and that's why I'm excited about him.
Yeah, for those two guys, I mean, at this stage, when you come to the combine, when you get ready to do the drills, tests, is there anything you think that they could do on the field at this point that would further them anymore? Or is it just sort of, hey, the tape is what it is, now get to interviews, get to talk to teams, and that's where you're going to be able to try to, figure out where you might go?
I think weigh-ins are big for Cobee because, again, if he can hit that 1.8 in training and then still hit the times we think he can run, like that's going to be huge, right? And as far as on-field drills, Cobee's going to crush those. Like he's going to look so fluid, so explosive. Like I have zero worries about him. And with Mello, I think, again, it's just demonstrating as a bigger corner in this class, can you still move and like unhinge your hips as well as the smaller DBs when you're going through all the drills back to back to back. And that's the value of the field drills is you can see guys back to back to back doing the same movements and kind of directly compare and contrast how fluid you are, how explosive you are. If he can go out there and look like a smaller DB in a big DB's body, like he's also probably going to be a round 3 to round 4 pick, and Cobee's probably going to be a round 2 to round 3 pick.
So at this stage, you think that Cobee's probably going to get ahead of Mello at this point?
It depends. Like there's some GMs who really do have size thresholds, and like so they might push him down because of that. But if it was me, like I just want good football players. And I think that's a pretty darn good football player.
Yeah. I know you haven't really fully got the chance to dive into him a little bit, but Devin Neal, running back for Kansas as well.
Oh, man, that's the name that everybody keeps bringing up to me. It's such a deep running back class. I'm like 14 deep, and he's 16 on my list. Not that he's 16th ranked, but it's just I'm just going through my list. And every time I bring up like a Bashal Tootin or a Marion Hampton or, literally anybody, the first thing out of everybody's mouth is, have you got to Devin Neal yet? So that's my project for this week. I'm thinking about not going out tonight and watching him tonight because I'm going to be on the field for the running back drills on Saturday. And I want to go into it knowing who he is.
Yeah.
Especially when I get to compare him to everybody not named Ashton Genty because he's not doing drills. But like if I can go into it with a wealth of knowledge about who he is, just watch him 2 or 3 games and then see him in the drills, I think I'll have a much more informed opinion on him. And who knows, I'll probably come back on your show in a couple months and be like, I really should have watched Devin Neal in January.
But just generally, you mentioned it. This is a very deep running back class, right? I mean, do you get the sense from NFL GMs, coaches that they're looking for any specific guys or different playing styles or what maybe how that could define, where running backs go in this draft?
I think every single team is building a committee at this point. There's very few true bell cows that exist, right, that are going to get 20-plus carries. In fact, it's extraordinarily rare in the modern NFL to get 20-plus carries per game. And so everybody's trying to build this kind of Voltron backfield where we have like our big bruiser, we have our speed guy, we have our all-rounder, somebody who can play special teams, pass protect. Like usually it's going to be 3 deep, sometimes 4 deep, and they're all going to have different skill sets. And so for this running back class, if they're all similar grades, you have no idea who's going to go ahead of everybody else in their range because it just depends on the type of skill set that these teams are really trying to accumulate. Some want early down backs, some want third down backs. Like Trayvon Henderson could very easily be the third running back off the board because he can pass protect. Not to mention he's also really explosive, but there's a bunch of explosive backs in this class.
Yeah.
Not many can pass protect like him. So again, it just kind of depends on what you're looking for.
Well, Brett, appreciate your insights. Appreciate your insights so much here. Good luck the rest of this week. I know you've got a busy week, and best of luck to you at the Combine.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks. We're here at the NFL Scouting Combine on Radio Row. I'm Nick Springer here on the Paid Podcast, talking about 4 KU draft prospects here at the NFL Combine. This is the first time in quite a while KU's had this number of players expected to be drafted. So exciting times for KU football fans, and all 4 of those guys, we're going to be hearing from them later on this week as well. Right now, I'm joined by Jordan Reid, ESPN NFL draft analyst. Jordan, how you doing?
I'm good. Happy to be here and ready to talk about these guys. I'm excited. This is my favorite time of the year.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it's been a very busy time for you with everything going on, but let's dive in with KU a little bit. And one guy for KU seems to be somebody that people are really excited about. That's Devin Neal, a running back who had another great season for Kansas this past year. What do you like about him? And in a year where it feels like there's a lot of really good running backs in this draft class, what maybe you think might help him stand out to NFL teams compared to other guys?
Well, the first one is just the versatility that he has. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. We already know what he can do as a runner, but whenever we're talking about running backs, especially in today's day and age, everybody wants that guy that can be an asset in the passing game, and I definitely think he can be that. The contact balance is exceptional. In my opinion, his vision is really good, and we saw the effect that he was able to have on that offense. I actually called one of their games for ESPN Radio when they played Illinois this year. They unfortunately lost the game, but that was one of his better games of the year. And I was like, man, I'm blown away by how good this dude is. So I think he's probably going to go in the 3rd round. I think that's a sweet spot for him, but I think Devin Neal's a fantastic player.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the round projections. You think about this draft class. We've heard a lot of NFL GMs and coaches talk about the depth of the running back class specifically. Do you think that could mean he does get drafted higher or lower depending on how those running backs start going off the board?
I think it's one of the biggest storylines of this year's draft class. Of course, starting with Ashton Genty. Where does he go in this draft class? And do teams elect to wait just because of how deep this year's running back class is? And this class is very reminiscent of 2017 to me. And if you remember, there were guys like Christian McCaffrey and Leonard Fournette in the top 10. But after that, I mean, you had Joe Mixon, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, the list goes on of the players that were selected in that draft class. And there were 30 running backs drafted that year in 2017. I think we could get 30 or more drafted in this year's draft class. I have 33 draftable grades at running back this year, which is one of the highest numbers that I've ever had.
Yeah, it's kind of funny when you think about the pendulum of the NFL, right? All this passing. You think about with the Chiefs, Mahomes, and now it's kind of seemingly gone back the other way with how important running backs have become.
Yeah, football is kind of like fashion to me. Like Champion came back in style out of nowhere. Fila came back in style out of nowhere. So now the running back is just making this revolution now, coming back in style.
On the defensive side for Kansas, they had 2 first-team All-Big 12 corners as well with Cobee Bryant and Mello Dotson. 2 guys that play differently, really.
Yeah.
Dotson with more length, Bryant with more smaller in size, but plays really aggressively. What do you think about those guys? And do you think maybe with Dotson's size, he gets drafted higher, or with Mello? I mean, how do you kind of splice out those 2 guys?
Well, just the ball skills, and I'll start with Mello. I think he has exceptional ball skills. He has the length that a lot of teams are going to covet. He'd probably be a 5th or 6th round guy if I had to guess right now, but the length, the ball skills, the versatility to play in coverage, play off man, he can play press, he can play zone as well. There's a lot of things that he can play. So I think he's more so of a day 3 guy if I had to guess right now. But Cobee Bryant is the one that a lot of teams like quite a bit. And, what I love or what I gauge in corners is just how confident are they. And that's one thing that he does not lack at all, especially just watching him down at the Shrine Bowl. He was the best player there, in my opinion. The confidence that he plays with, he always feels like he belongs on the field. It doesn't matter who he's in front of.
Yeah, I mean, we just saw a smaller corner this past year, and Sanders still played pretty well on the outside. Yeah. Do you think that might embolden some teams to look at Cobee Bryant and say, hey, look, maybe if you're only 170, 175, that's okay. We're still going to take a chance on you?
Yeah, good. I mean, especially when you're talking about somebody that feels like they belong and the confidence that he has. He's very physical when we're talking about feeling against the run as well. And that's something that you always want to gauge, that you may have worries about, especially if a corner is skinny and he doesn't like to come up and tackle in the run game. But I don't have any questions about that with Cobee at all. So I think he's probably going to be another guy that ends up going in the 3rd round, if I had to guess right now. But he can play nickel. He can play outside. He always is going to feel like he belongs on the NFL field right away.
Another guy that could be an intriguing player later in the draft is Logan Brown, offensive tackle for Kansas. Obviously, he looks like exactly what you would want. 6'6", 6'7", 330 pounds. Do you think just off that, some teams may look at him and say, hey, this is a guy we can develop and maybe mold into a player late in the draft?
Yeah, he's one of those developmental swing tackles that could play inside. He could play tackle as well. But I think that's probably going to be his wheelhouse and where a lot of people really think he's going to be on the next level. He's probably going to have to be that swing tackle that has experience on both the left and the right side. But there's going to be a lot of debates about him in the draft room, somewhere in that late round or potentially undrafted free agent. But I think there's a lot of things to like about him.
Yeah. Perfect. Jordan, thanks so much for taking some time to speak with us about KU. I know you're a very busy man. So
absolutely.
Good luck. Thanks for the rest of this week.
Thank you for having me.